Imagine this. You go to a highly qualified provider, and you get a premium dermal filler injected into your cheeks, or maybe your lips.
Right.
And everything goes perfectly. You look great. You feel great. 6 months, maybe even a year goes by. You've almost forgotten you even have it.
Yeah, it's just part of your face at that point.
Exactly. But then you catch a bad flu, or, maybe you just go in for a completely routine dental cleaning.
Just a standard Tuesday appointment.
Right. And a few days later, out of absolutely nowhere, the exact spots where you had that filler-injected swell up into these firm, painful, highly visible lumps.
It is incredibly alarming for the patient. I mean, you wake up, you look in the mirror, and your face is suddenly distorted.
Oh, I bet. It sounds terrifying.
It really is. And for a very long time, this phenomenon was just a massive head-scratcher for clinicians across the whole aesthetic medicine world.
Because, it just doesn't seem to make any intuitive sense. What does a cough or, a dentist scraping plaque off your teeth have to do with the hyaluronic acid sitting in your jawline?
On the surface, absolutely nothing.
Right. But that is exactly the puzzle we are decoding for you today. The mission of this deep dive is to answer one highly specific, really fascinating question.
That's a big one.
It is. Can a systemic inflammatory state in your body increase localized enzyme activity and actually accelerate the breakdown of your cosmetic fillers?
The biochemistry we are going to look at tells a story that, honestly, it sounds a bit like science fiction.
It really does.
But it is happening right under the skin of thousands of patients every single year.
So to figure out exactly how and why this happens, we've brought together a massive stack of sources for you.
Tons of data.
Yeah, we are looking at comprehensive reviews of the FDA's MAUDE database.
That's the Manufacturer and User Facility Device Experience Database.
Right, the one that tracks aesthetic complications. And we are also digging into clinical retrospective chart reviews on specific types of highly cross-linked fillers.
Which is where we get the real-world patient numbers.
Exactly. And most importantly, we are pulling from some seriously heavy-hitting biochemical research on how your immune system and naturally occurring enzymes interact at a microscopic molecular level.
It gets deep.
It does. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the environment under your skin on just a normal, healthy day.
Right. Because before we can understand how an illness seemingly melts your filler, we have to establish what filler is actually made of.
Right, and how your body treats it at baseline?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of cosmetic fillers on the market today are made of hyaluronic acid, or HA.
Which people hear all the time in skincare.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Now, HA is not some, foreign synthetic plastic. It natively exists in your body right now.
So we already have it.
We do. It is a crucial, fundamental structural component of your extracellular matrix. It basically acts like a biological sponge.
Okay, I like that visual.
Yeah, it loves water. It keeps your tissues hydrated. It provides volume. And it even helps with cellular migration and repair.
But if I remember correctly from the research, native natural HA is incredibly short-lived, right?
Oh, very much so.
Like our bodies are constantly recycling it at a ridiculous speed.
The turnover rate is astonishing, really.
Yeah.
In your tissue, the half-life of native hyaluronic acid is literally 24 to 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Your body builds it, uses it, and breaks it down almost continuously.
Which obviously would make for a terrible cosmetic product.
Absolutely terrible.
Right. Like if you are paying $1,000 for a lip enhancement, you do not want it metabolized and gone by the weekend.
No one would buy that. And that's exactly why pharmaceutical companies had to engineer a solution.
So what did they do?
Well, to make cosmetic fillers last anywhere from 6 to 18 months, they introduced cross-linking agents during the manufacturing process.
Okay.
The most common chemical agent used is called BDDE, which stands for 1004-butynyl diglycidyl ether.
That is quite the mouthful. So what is that BDDE actually doing to the hyaluronic acid?
It essentially binds the individual free-floating HA chains together. Imagine taking a handful of loose strings and tying them into a complex multi-layered net.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That tightly woven mesh is much, much harder for the body to dismantle. However, your body still recognizes this massive cross-linked gel as something that shouldn't permanently be there.
Right, it knows it's an intruder.
Exactly, and it constantly works to break it down.
And according to the sources, it tackles this breakdown through two main natural processes.
Yep.
The first is oxidative degradation, where free radicals just sort of slowly chip away at the edges of the filler over time.
Kind of like weathering a rock.
Right. But the second process is the star of our show today, enzymatic degradation.
This is the big one. Our bodies produce specific endogenous enzymes whose entire biological purpose is to hunt down and dismantle hyaluronic acid.
And these are the hyaluronidases.
Yes, hyaluronidases. They act as chemical scissors. They target and cleave the specific chemical bonds, the beta-1,4 glycosidic linkages, between the sugar molecules that make up the HA chain.
And we don't just have one generic type of this enzyme, right? The literature mentions a whole family of them.
What's fascinating here is the sheer redundancy the body has for this process. Humans actually have 6 different types, or isoforms, of hyaluronidase enzymes.
6 of them.
Yeah. There is hyalo-1, HL2, HYL3, HYL4, HYLP1, and PH20.
That's a lot of scissors.
It is. They are distributed in different tissues and serve slightly different functions, but they all share the ability to degrade HA.
Okay, so to give you an analogy to help visualize all this biochemistry, imagine your native natural hyaluronic acid is just a simple wooden footbridge.
Okay.
The natural river of your body's hyaluronidase enzymes washes that wooden bridge away almost instantly.
In that 24 to 48-hour window.
Exactly. So to make a cosmetic filler, scientists reinforce that wooden bridge with heavy steel beams. That's the BDDE cross-linking.
Great way to picture it.
Right. And the exact same river of enzymes is still flowing underneath it, constantly lapping at the structure. But because of those steel beams, it takes a year or more for the water to slowly rust and degrade the bridge until it finally collapses.
That perfectly captures the baseline state. Under normal, healthy conditions, the enzymatic degradation is just a slow, steady river. It's highly regulated, very predictable, and it's what gives a dermal filler its expected lifespan.
But wait, I'm stuck on something.
Like that.
If our body always has this slow, steady, highly regulated river of enzymes breaking down the filler, why would a random cold virus or getting a tooth scraped suddenly turn that predictable trickle into a raging flood?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, how does a localized event completely upend the pace of this breakdown?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer comes down to how the human immune system communicates danger. A flood in the body is driven by systemic inflammation. And the trigger for that system-wide alarm doesn't have to be a massive physical trauma or like a life-threatening infection. It can be remarkably mundane, everyday events.
Like catching the flu.
Or getting a vaccination. Or contracting a respiratory virus like SARS-CoV-2. Or, as we touched on earlier, getting a routine dental cleaning.
Let's actually pause on the dental cleaning for a second, because I think that's the most surprising one for a lot of people listening. How does flossing and scraping plaque translate to facial swelling?
It comes down to something called transient bacteremia. Dental procedures, even routine cleanings, frequently cause this.
Which means bacteria in the blood, right?
Exactly. When the hygienist scrapes around your gum line, it causes these microscopic tears in the highly vascularized tissue of your gums.
Okay.
And bacteria that naturally live in your mouth take that opportunity to slip into your bloodstream. It's usually a very small amount, hence transient, but your immune system doesn't know that.
It just sees foreign invaders in the blood and panics.
Oh, complete panic. The immune system senses this intrusion immediately and sounds a systemic alarm.
And how does it sound that alarm?
It does this by deploying pro-inflammatory cytokines. You can think of cytokines as chemical text messages that immune cells use to coordinate a response.
I like that. Group chat for the immune system.
Exactly. Specifically, the body releases massive amounts of 2 very potent cytokines, tumor necrosis factor alpha, or TNF-alpha, and interleukin-1 beta, or IL-1 beta. During an acute immune response, the body generates massive amounts of specific ROS, like hydroxyl radicals and peroxynitrite. These are essentially biological weapons that your immune cells use to destroy invading bacteria or viruses.
But they are notoriously indiscriminate, aren't they?
Very indiscriminate.
So the body is on extreme high alert, the alarm bells are ringing, the weapons are drawn.
Right.
But this brings up a crucial clarifying question.
Go for it.
If I get a respiratory virus in my lungs and my immune system drops all these cytokines and ROS into my bloodstream, how does the dermal filler sitting inertly in my cheeks even get involved?
That's the link we need to make.
Do these systemic text messages just indiscriminately wake up enzymes everywhere in the body?
They broadcast system-wide, and they absolutely affect the microenvironment surrounding your filler.
Wow.
Yeah. When those potent cytokines, TNF-alpha and IL-1 beta circulate through the capillaries in your face, they eventually reach the cellular matrix holding your dermal filler.
And what happens when they get there?
When those chemical text messages bind to the receptors on the local cells, they trigger a very specific, highly aggressive signaling cascade.
The sources specifically highlight the NF-kappa B pathway here.
Right. The NF-kappa B pathway is essentially a master switch for inflammation inside the cell.
Okay.
When the cytokines flip that switch, it sends a signal directly into the nucleus of the cell, ordering it to change its behavior. In this case, it tells the cells to radically upregulate the expression of hyaluronidase isoforms.
So making more enzymes.
Exactly. Specifically, it commands the mass production of HYL1, HYL2, HYL3, and PH20.
Upregulation meaning the body is physically manufacturing more of the enzyme right there on site.
In a mass. The local cells are suddenly churning out massive quantities of these chemical scissors.
So the river becomes a flood.
Yes. The baseline river we talked about has just swelled into a torrential flood of enzymes directed straight at the cross-linked hyaluronic acid.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Because producing more enzymes is only half of the biochemical assault happening to the filler, we still have to factor in those reactive oxygen species, the biological weapons, that spike during the inflammation.
The ROS pose a severe double threat to the structural integrity of the filler.
How so?
First, they attack the HA polymer chains directly. This is a process called free radical depolymerization. Because ROS are so unstable, they aggressively steal electrons from the hyaluronic acid, literally snipping the chemical bonds apart.
So it's a secondary form of degradation happening alongside the enzymes.
Exactly. But the second threat from the ROS is the one that really blew my mind when reviewing this research.
Me too. The ROS don't just attack the filler, they actually attack the hyaluronidase enzymes themselves.
They alter the microenvironment so intensely that it causes oxidative stress on the newly manufactured enzymes. But instead of destroying the hyaluronidase, this oxidative stress induces a conformational change.
Meaning it changes the actual physical 3D shape of the enzyme?
Right, because enzymes operate on a lock and key mechanism. Their physical shape dictates how effectively they can grab onto a target and cut it.
Right.
In this highly inflammatory, highly oxidative microenvironment, the conformational change alters the hyaluronidase so that it binds to the hyaluronic acid much more aggressively.
Yeah.
It vastly increases its catalytic activity.
Okay, I have to synthesize this with our earlier analogy because this is wild.
It's a lot.
It's not just that the immune system's alarm bells are sending way more demolition workers to the site of the filler. That's the upregulation of the enzyme via the NF-kappa B pathway.
Correct.
The oxidative stress from the ROS is actually upgrading the workers' tools. It's altering their shape. It's essentially trading their handsaws for heavy-duty chainsaws.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
So now you have a massive crew of demolition workers armed with chainsaws tearing through that reinforced bridge at hyperspeed.
It is a perfectly coordinated, hyper-accelerated demolition. And that speed is exactly what causes the visible, painful, long-term fallout for the patient.
Because when the filler is chopped up that rapidly and aggressively, it doesn't just neatly dissolve and quietly filter out through the lymphatic system.
No, it leaves debris. When you rapidly cleave cross-linked HA, it gets shredded into tiny fragments known as low molecular weight HA.
And this is a really critical distinction in the biochemistry, isn't it?
It is. Native high molecular weight HA, the kind normally in your skin or the intact filler itself, is inherently calming to the body. It's space-filling, it's hydrating, it tells the immune system, hey, everything is structurally sound here.
But these tiny shredded pieces send the exact opposite message.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Low molecular weight fragments are highly pro-inflammatory. The body views these tiny fragments as a sign of massive tissue damage.
Like an SOS.
Yeah, they act as what immunologists call superantigens.
So what does a superantigen actually do?
These fragments bind directly to a specific receptor on your immune cells called CD44. Think of the CD44 receptor like an emergency panic button.
Okay, another great visual.
When the low molecular weight HA mashes that panic button, it triggers prolonged, intense signaling that screams for lymphocytes, your white blood cells, to drop everything and rush to the area.
Which creates this brutal, vicious cycle right under the patient's skin.
The cycle absolutely feeds on itself. The systemic inflammation from the virus or the dental cleaning upregulates the hyaluronidase enzyme.
Right.
The highly active enzyme rapidly chops the filler into tiny, low molecular weight fragments. Those fragments hit the CD44 panic button and cause even more intense local inflammation.
Wow.
That local inflammation brings in more immune cells, which release more cytokines, which upregulates even more enzyme to chop up whatever filler is left.
So what does this all mean for the person looking in the mirror? I mean, clinically, the outward manifestation of this microscopic vicious cycle is profound edema.
Which means massive localized swelling.
Exactly. And the formation of delayed onset nodules, or DONs. These are those firm, sometimes incredibly painful lumps that can appear weeks, months, or even years after you originally got the injection.
The time frame is what makes it so tricky to diagnose. A patient might get filler in January, have COVID in October, and develop massive nodules in November.
It's so delayed.
It is. It takes a deep understanding of the biochemistry to connect those dots.
And when researchers started connecting those dots and looking at the clinical data, particularly the FDO's MIUD database and various retrospective chart reviews, a very specific pattern emerged.
A very clear pattern regarding which fillers were causing these nodules most frequently.
Right.
The data painted a picture pointing toward highly cross-linked fillers. Specifically, a lot of the clinical observations centered on Allergan's Vycross technology line.
That includes popular products like Volbella, Voluma, and Volure, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, these were marketed specifically for their longevity, weren't they?
They were. The engineering goal was maximum durability. They use a proprietary mix of high and low molecular weight HA, densely cross-linked to resist that baseline enzymatic degradation we talked about earlier.
So they were designed to stick around.
To last a very long time in the tissue. But the retrospective studies show that this specific class of highly cross-linked fillers carried a significantly higher risk for developing delayed onset nodules following an inflammatory trigger.
How much higher are we talking?
Well, in some retrospective chart reviews, the incidence rate for these nodules with the Vycross line was reported at up to 4.25%.
That sounds high, but what's the baseline?
To put that in perspective, the generally accepted industry standard complication rate for traditional, less cross-linked HA fillers is around 0.2%.
That is staggering. We are talking about over a 20-fold increase in the likelihood of developing these delayed nodules.
This raises an important question that the aesthetic medicine community is currently grappling with.
Which is?
Did the biochemical engineering required to make fillers incredibly durable inadvertently turn them into a bit of a ticking time bomb for the immune system?
Because they are so densely cross-linked and hard to break down, are they just trapping those pro-inflammatory fragments?
It is highly likely. The dense cross-linking might make it incredibly difficult for the body's natural clearance mechanisms, like macrophages, to sweep away the debris.
That makes sense.
Alternatively, the sheer density of the foreign material might just present a much tougher, more frustrating target for the immune system. The body tolerates it when things are calm.
But the second that tolerance drops.
Exactly. Because the immune system is distracted and highly agitated by a systemic virus, the immune response aimed at that stubborn, unyielding blob of filler is overwhelmingly aggressive.
When you look at this whole cascading loop, the virus, the immune alarm, the upgraded enzymes, the shredded fragments hitting the panic button, it really paints a definitive picture.
It really does.
Our immune system doesn't treat filler as just an innocent bystander. It is an active participant in our biochemistry.
It emphasizes a core biological truth that is super easy to forget when you're sitting in a med spa. Dermal filler is an implant. It is a foreign body prosthesis. It might look perfectly natural on the outside and it might feel like your own tissue, but your immune system is acutely aware that it is there.
Always watching it.
Always. It's choosing to tolerate it. But when a systemic stressor disrupts that delicate peace treaty, the filler becomes the site of a biochemical battlefield.
So let's look back at the mission we set out on at the top of the show. Can systemic inflammation from a respiratory virus, a vaccine, or even routine dental bacteremia ramp up localized hyaluronidase activity and drastically accelerate filler breakdown?
Based on everything we've looked at today, yes.
Based on the molecular mechanics we've explored, the answer is a definitive, resounding yes. It absolutely does. And it throws the local tissue into a vicious cycle of enzymatic destruction, painful swelling, and nodule formation.
Grasping that mechanism, the interplay of cytokines, the shape-shifting enzymes driven by ROS, the inflammatory signaling of low molecular weight fragments, it's absolutely crucial for modern aesthetics.
Why is that?
Because it shifts the entire paradigm of how we view complications. It moves the conversation away from a panicked, I'm having a mysterious allergic reaction to a filler I've had for a year,
Right, the mystery.
to a clinical understanding of my cosmetic implant is reacting exactly the way human biochemistry dictates it should under acute systemic stress.
Which brings us to why you, listening right now, should care about this beyond just solving a cool medical mystery. Knowledge is power, especially where it comes to your own healthcare.
Absolutely.
If you are a patient who receives dermal fillers, the conversation you have with your cosmetic injector needs to change. Telling them about a recent bout of the flu, a COVID infection you had 3 weeks ago, or an upcoming intensive dental procedure isn't just making small talk in the chair while they prep the syringe.
It is vital medical context.
Hmm.
A responsible medically trained injector needs to know if your immune system is currently generating those pro-inflammatory cytokines.
Because if they don't,
Injecting a highly cross-linked, durable HA product into an already agitated cytokine-rich environment is practically inviting the NF-kappa B pathway to initiate that demolition sequence.
wow.
You are vastly increasing the odds of a delayed onset nodule forming before the filler even has a chance to settle.
It's all about timing and respecting the biological environment, but I want to leave you with a final, forward-looking thought pulled directly from the deepest parts of the research we reviewed.
The really cutting-edge stuff.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time today talking about how reactive oxygen species and inflammatory cytokines drive this rapid, painful breakdown. But the literature also highlights a fascinating countermeasure.
The pharmacology of prevention.
Exactly. The research notes that certain specific antioxidants, particularly one called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, as well as specific non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like indomethacin, have been shown in studies to actually inhibit hyaluronidase activity.
Which is incredible.
They can successfully suppress the generation of those pro-inflammatory HA fragments.
And the mechanism there is brilliant. By introducing potent antioxidants, you are systematically lowering the oxidative stress in the tissue.
Right.
If you neutralize a reactive oxygen species, you theoretically prevent the conformational change in the enzyme. To use your analogy, you are keeping the chainsaws out of the hands of the demolition crew, forcing them to stick to their slow, predictable handsaws.
So here is the provocative thought for you to chew on as we wrap up. Could the future of aesthetic medicine involve a totally new standard of care?
I think we're heading there.
Could we see a world where you take a highly specific protective protocol of anti-inflammatories or targeted antioxidants in the days before you go in for that routine dental cleaning or your annual flu shot?
It's a huge possibility.
Could we essentially learn to put up a temporary biochemical shield around our cosmetic fillers to stop this enzymatic cascade before the first cytokine even reaches the tissue?
It's a highly compelling frontier for the industry. For the last 20 years, the focus has entirely been on how to manufacture the longest-lasting filler and how to inject it perfectly.
Right, just getting it in there.
The logical next step in the evolution of aesthetic medicine is mastering how to chemically and biologically protect that investment once it is integrated into the patient's living tissue.
Until that protocol becomes the gold standard, we are left navigating a space where beauty meets biology in deeply unpredictable ways, where a simple cough or a trip to the dental hygienist can shatter the illusion of a perfect cosmetic result.
Yeah.
It just goes to show, when it comes to the intricate, interconnected web of the human immune system, there is no such thing as an isolated event. Everything talks to everything else.
It's a remarkably complex machine, and it demands our respect.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.